Much more information about our latest update, future events, and also you can meet some friends and share your thoughts over there.
Good, good. Good to see you.
Okay, so I think we can start now. So welcome everyone, I'm Ian, and welcome to the last meetup meeting of Python, Melbourne Python of 2024. Sorry, I had to make this bad. So first of all, we would like to acknowledge the voluntary people, the Aboriginal owners of the land where we gather today, and pay our respect to the elderly, past, present, and emerging. So our Melbourne Python group is also an open community. We welcome everyone from every background, whether your interest, your experience is, so we welcome everyone to join us. By the way, if you want to know more about our group and announcement, you can follow our Melbourne Python group on LinkedIn or Mastodon. Before we start, we also want to thank our sponsor. First of all, Judo Band that let us to use their venue every time and provide us the pizza and drinks to us. And Michael, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, thanks a lot. If you don't know anything about Judo is a bank focusing in the SME sector. So we do term deposits, line of credit, home loans and business loans. The goal is to become Australia's most trusted bank, bringing back the relationship banking of the 1980s. Just a couple of things tonight. So if you need toilets, or they're at the end to past lifts and to the end to your right, any help keeping place clean, rubbish or anything like that would be very much appreciated. Any questions about any of that, feel free to ask myself or any of the other organisers. We are looking for, we are hiring at the moment for a few positions. We might cover that later in the marketplace. It's been a pleasure to host you all in 2024, and we hope to see you all again in 2025. Thank you and have a nice evening.
We also thank our sponsor from AWS and Just Digital People to help us to arrange the logistics of our event and our community. So this is the agenda of today. So as later, Renaldi will be sharing about a streamer, Ximena. He will talk about an architecture background of this AI cheater streamer. And we also have another speaker, Akshat. He is a student at Deakin University. He will talk with us about web development using Django. And then after the two talks, we will have a session called Marketplace, where you can share if you want to collaborate with someone, or if you are hiring people at your company, just as like Michael said. And also maybe if you are looking for opportunities, you want to pitch yourself to the community, you are welcome to share at 7:30. And then after the talk, we will still have some time for mingling, for just some casual chatting and some pizza and drinks. And we will close the door by around 8 o'clock. But before we start, we have an exciting announcement we want to share today. So in next year, we will be launching a mentorship program. So we are now inviting people from different expertise in Python, whether you are from data science, programming, data, web development, or anything. If you want to share your knowledge and give back to the community, or enhance your maybe leadership skill or whatever, you are very welcome to join our mentorship program. Or even you have some thought about how we should go, if you have some comment about how we can run the program, you can also scan the QR code and share with us. And we will get in touch with you very soon. Sorry, I still see. And by the way, as our community is still expanding, we are also actively looking for more volunteers to help us in managing the community. So we are particularly looking for 4 sections. So first of all is sponsorship liaison to help us to find more sponsors, to get more resources to arrange more events, and also a speaker and logistics. Say for like today, maybe you want to be a MC, you want to help us to organize the event of the day. You are also welcome to join us. And also we are looking for university liaison. So that position will help us to get in touch with university to find potential students that want to develop their skill in Python, looking for speaker or looking for more sponsors from or collaboration with different education institutions. And then also for the mentoring program, we are also looking for looking for volunteers to help us to arrange logistics. So if you want to share or contribute to the community, also you can scan the QR code here and submit your information here. Last but not least, so if you still haven't become our selected member, you can scan the QR code to join the channel, where you can find more information about what I have just talked about, the updates, and also you can find more information about the future events and connect to the people, or maybe find yourself an opportunity or job. So without further ado, we will now pass the time to Renaldi for his first talk. Thank you.
Test. All right. Hey everyone. Great to see everyone here again. And it's actually interesting because I did pretty much like make a post on this as well. That I pretty much this is actually my first talk of the year for the Melbourne Python meetup, and it's also my last talk technically for the year. So yeah, it's been a while since I delivered a talk again at Melbourne Python, but pretty much you probably have mostly just seen me organizing. So it's pretty much like a good change of pace to pretty much be giving a talk again. So yeah, pretty much today we're going to be looking at crafting the AI streamer experience on Twitch with Python and Amazon Bedrock API. So as a bit of a prelude to this talk is a bit of a continuation from a talk I previously delivered. So for context, I actually delivered this talk back at AWS reInvent of last year, and funnily enough, actually it's happening on this week as well, so it's kind of like a very interesting coincidence, but pretty much delivered it back then, and back then I focused a lot on the architecture behind the AWS side of things, and pretty much on how it's configured on AWS, and pretty much on some considerations as well on making it scalable in AWS. But for this one, I'm going to be focusing a bit more on the Python side of things, which is kind of like looking at the Python code, looking at how pretty much you can be sending it on Python, and pretty much just similar stuff based on that. So yeah, we're just going to be looking at that today, and yeah, just going to be walking through it a bit. So a bit about myself, pretty much day-to-day software engineer, working AWS certified, 2 times Microsoft Azure expert, and also 7 times Google Cloud certified. I'm also an SME as well for Business Architect Professional and the AWS Data Analytics Specialty certifications. I'm also an author and instructor, currently actually writing the book Amazon Bedrock in Action. I'm an international speaker, have been pretty much talking about different things at over 50 events and conferences. And in general, just enjoy all things AWS, open source, and virtual reality. So what's the agenda looking for today? So pretty much just covering a bit more on the motivation on having an AI streamer to start off with, and pretty much choosing an appropriate LLM model, coding it up, looking at the different challenges and optimization that could be necessary as part of this, and finally, looking a bit of a demo of what it actually looks like. So, what is the motivation that we have for this? It's really because we want to provide a unique experience to viewers. So, one thing that you probably already know as well, like if you're familiar with the content creating space, is that one thing that everyone always tries to look into is how can you be different? How can you offer something that is different compared to what content is already available in the current landscape? And this is essentially where you then start looking at different things. And pretty much when I first explored this idea, I was like, okay, there's a lot of talk nowadays about generative AI, and this is back a year ago, of course, when I was still thinking about the different things that we could do with generative AI. And then eventually I started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel like there's a lot of potential in creating something that can actually be responsive towards essentially user input, and essentially something that can continuously respond towards users and create a different experience for what users actually might have. And that's when I essentially came up with the idea, okay, maybe we can create something based on that. And pretty much from that, I started carving out a bit of an idea. And the great thing of this is, it's really malleable based on what you want. So I'm gonna be pretty much cutting through a bit of corners here, pretty much of some foundational knowledge, but essentially with, for instance, with prompt engineering, which is one of the bases of AI, generative AI, you can pretty much customize the experience with the personality you want the AI to have. You want the AI to be someone who is, I would say, well, angry. Like you can pretty much customize that way. You want to be someone who is, you know, cracks jokes with everything. Like you can definitely do it as well. You want the AI to behave like any person you want. You can 100% tell them to behave like that type of particular person. So it's really a great thing to do, and in general, it just makes it more fun for the audience that way. So pretty much some highlights that I would make as well from this particular deployment that I made is that it was based on the serverless deployment. So pretty much there are a few benefits that go out about this, which is essentially reduction in costs and helps to support the event-driven architecture that we have, and last but not least, supports a decrease in latency. So more or less, it's really scalable, but at the same time, we are also able to leverage this so that we can essentially have more of a on-demand and pay-per-as-we-go model. And we need to basically choose an appropriate LLM model as part of this too. So if you're already familiar with Bedrock or AI models in general, you always have the choices of different LLM models you can choose from. And these range from a number of different choices. Now, if you're familiar with Bedrock, you might know that there are different choices, for instance, like Anthropic. Anthropic is, I would say, until now, one of at least Bedrock's most anticipated models, and pretty much it's one of Bedrock's most popular models, I would say. There's Anthropic, there's Mistral, there's a lot of different models pretty much, and with models that are cutting edge and I would say leading at this point, such as Claude's 3.5 model, it's pretty much been very good for usage for these kinds of things. And of course, it's always a matter of experimenting with what kinds of models that you need. So experimenting what works, and of course, consider cost as well along the way too. So it's also important to mention as well that there's always the challenge as well of audience interactions. So if it's event-driven, you pretty much need to ensure that it only responds to what the audience sends a message. And this is both a plus and a minus, because at the same time, you don't want the AI talking too much. You don't want it to basically crack a joke like every 5 seconds, because, well, that just defeats the experience. What's the difference between you just making some kind of event stream that just prompts it, okay, make a joke every 5 seconds, then that wouldn't be good, right? So pretty much it makes a bit of a balance between how you can drive it to pretty much communicate with the audience every time they send a message, but at the same time, if say the stream is a bit dead, like let's say like there's like 5 or 6 only viewers, then not everyone's gonna always message like say like even like per minute. So we need to somehow help basically in this case the streamer make a conversation, and because after all, audience retention is a very key thing in growing channels. So let's get into the code now, and I'm gonna pretty much highlight some bits of the code, and pretty much it's not gonna be the full picture, of course, but I'm gonna highlight what I believe are the most significant aspects that would be, at least in my opinion, the good things pretty much to highlight. So pretty much to start off with, we can see pretty much that we're declaring the parameters here: max token count, stop sequences, temperature, top P. Put it simply, essentially, in case you don't have much background on what either of these parameters are, basically we're just, to put it simply, specifying how creative it is, and pretty much we're just appropriately just putting the what it will stop on essentially as part of the stop sequence. Essentially, we're putting it none for this use case, and how long it can respond for each one. So we want to keep the response essentially a bit briefer. One quick note on this, pretty much this is based on one of the experiments that I ran. Now this model ID pretty much is based on one of the Claude models that I'm currently using. Titan is pretty much a great substitute. It's cheap, although I don't think it's very good. But yeah, essentially, in my opinion, these days, Claude 3 has been a very good model to use, particularly for this kind of use case. And let's take a bit of a sideway now to prompt engineering for a bit before we continue on. So what is prompt engineering? So prompt engineering itself is a bit of a look into how you can prompt a particular system and particular AI to essentially behave or speak as you need it to, and how you can respond essentially to, it's essentially the art of prompting an AI based on your input to essentially have it respond accordingly from what you want it to respond to. And it has a big role in enhancing the AI interaction, because you are essentially prompting it to be able to behave in a certain way, or at least you're setting the context so it behaves in a certain way. And the user prompts, the user that pretty much interacts with the AI, then later on will send the next prompts, because that'll pretty much be the next input. And you can then pretty much create more effectivity as well within prompts through being able to create more context, create more, essentially, how can it respond to users, essentially, as what they are trying to get out of it. It's essentially, can you pretty much just focus on getting the AI to respond exactly as you want it to within one prompt, rather than having to continually follow up, and that's why prompt engineering is very important. So, sample prompt, and this is what I'm currently using. So pretty much, I basically introduced the AI to their name. So in this case, for instance, I said, Ximena, answer in 2 sentences or less only. You're currently streaming on Twitch with multiple chatters on the stream. You're a sentient, AI-powered virtual YouTuber with massive fan traveling and dancing. Make small talk with anyone who messages you. So that is pretty much the prompt I started off with. We're setting context here. We're setting context to define what they are, because, or if you don't set a context, by the way, if someone messages and they'll say something like, oh, like I'm like, like I'm this model, how can I help you today? Which completely defeats the whole immersion that you have, because they're trying to respond as the model that they're pretty much programmed originally to be. And that's why we are setting a different context, so it behaves like a different person. So the architecture I'll be introducing today is going to be very simple. It's more of a simplified model, so pretty much user interacts with Twitch pretty much, and after that we essentially get the, it sends it to Bedrock basically, where it pretty much runs the model, and basically it gets converted to voice. So it's a bit of a simplified version of the architecture, but pretty much it's essentially what's happening essentially when you are currently prompting it. And it's something that's definitely replicable as well on your local host environment as well, if you do try to spin it up. And when we do spin up a Twitch API, we can pretty much look at something like this. So basically you are just setting appropriate Twitch token, you're setting the appropriate user message, you're setting the AI message as well, you're saying VTuber, and quick disclaimer, this is already an expired token, so it won't do any good if you are going to enter it, since I think the more security oriented people, I think, probably are already aware of it and pretty much, oh, you know, like don't put it on like your, you know, hard coded. No, don't worry, I've already taken the proper precautions before this law, so that's all good. But yeah, pretty much. You're appropriately putting the event message, and basically after that, you are just putting you're predicting the appropriate conversation by putting it onto the response. So still pretty simple stuff. And after that, we're handling the message events, and we are then basically just putting on, basically encoding the message. We're appending the conversation as well into the bot. So we're appending it into the conversation object, we're printing it out, we're getting the appropriate response. Basically, we're just appropriately declaring it as the particular role, as the assistant in this case, and pretty much we're just basically appropriately also then just initializing based on the conversation, and we're capturing it and we put it on the text-to-speech client. We then save it on SSML format, so you can see over here that we pretty much are just capturing it. So SSML is a bit of an interesting format context, but basically it's what they use to be able to parse for synthesizing output. So pretty much in this case, we are following this particular context. We're starting off with the speak text over here. We're pretty much then getting response counter. Every time it goes onto response counter, we're increasing the response counter by 1, and basically we're just appending the overall text that way so that at least it knows what to speak and how it will be spoken. And we then use the text-to-speech from Google in this case, so pretty much it's a bit of an interchangeable thing. Like if you're pretty much accustomed to also using it on the AWS side, pretty much you could be using Poly. If you are pretty much more accustomed to Google, you could also pretty much be just using basic Google as well. So pretty much we're putting it on text-to-speech, selecting the voice, the appropriate voice, getting the response, we're synthesizing the speech, and after that we are creating an output file, and pretty much we're writing out the appropriate output that way, and we then basically just put a new audio frame, basically frame rate. We're setting frame rate, we are exporting the audio, we save it, and pretty much we then open it again, basically. And we then create subtitles as well. So subtitle creation is another interesting aspect, and we want to make sure that the audience engages and understands the content. So as part of that, we are getting the count, the basic current count, and pretty much we're just getting the time points. We are then writing it out basically based on the time points. We get the appropriate number of time that it is currently supposed to stop for, pretty much. So essentially this is just logic of coding it up so that it knows how much words that it has per line and how much letters it should have per line, and essentially just writes it out into the file. Essentially it's written in a text file, it's thrown out into visualization on Twitch, and pretty much after that it's just closed off until the next output comes out again. Now, there's a few other things that I feel is still a bit of a challenge with utilizing AI kind of streamers basically on the platform. One of it pretty much is the problem of AI talking with control, and believe me, it is a problem. It's actually, so I pretty much ran, essentially for context, I ran my AI streamer as well for, I say like quite an amount of time pretty much, just, you know, like letting it run loosely because, well, it's able to. You just like let it run, just, you know, keep it continually respond to people. Funnily enough, actually, I think like it was like about like a week since I actually started running it and actually got my first Twitch ban because the AI started saying something that apparently got flagged by the Twitch mods as something that shouldn't be said. And after that, I basically was like, okay, well, this looks like a problem. So I pretty much had to further strengthen what it can say and what it can't say. Because those of you pretty much who might be I would say, quite versed in the AI landscape might know this. Anyone here know jailbreaking in particular for quite a lot of people? Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's a problem. Look, because yeah, in my earlier versions as well, because I tried running this with different models. I tried like GPT. I tried pretty much like Bedrock as well. And look, jailbreaking was a bit of a problem in like either one, regardless, because there's always a way pretty much to get around it, and it was a problem. So pretty much it's just a matter of how strict can you get with the particular context that you're setting and the particular guardrails that you're setting, so that basically doesn't go down the wrong path. And yeah, of course, as part of that, you need to also abide by Twitch regulations as well. And the funniest thing I remember that I always had was people trying to, for some reason, make this Twitch AI say that they were, I think, of a younger age than they should be, just so that they get banned, which I think was very interesting. But anyway, there's always people who try to play around with this, but luckily I think it's been after that, I pretty much like after continuously rehearsing, at least like trying like different prompts, pretty much it seems like people can no longer do that. But yeah, pretty much it was a bit of an issue. But after that, essentially that's why you're using prompt engineering, to try to rein control, to try and set a context and set like what can it and can it not say, basically. And there's just a big myriad of customizability. So for instance, there's always games that the AI can play, essentially. So it's definitely something that has been explored as well for quite some time already as well. For instance, one of the things that I was able to make my AI do was that it was able to play chess with people, with viewers, and pretty much, you pretty much just enter an input, like what move you want to make, and it just move basically based on that input. And of course, it also has customized personalities as well. You can make it behave in a certain way, and it will just basically continue on behaving in a certain way. And of course, recognition as well for users who has been active is another interesting thing, which I basically started out trying out as well, because it's very interesting to surprise people as well that have been on the channel a lot too, and pretty much just kind of like embedded into basically the AI streamer. Basically, it's kind of like, oh hey, again, like something like that, and you know, like it's very interesting to kind of like make it at least like recognize people and pretty much just save it to their context. Now, this is pretty much run based on OBS, and this is a bit of a show of my current setup, at least for how it's currently showing. So you can see that it takes a bit of a understanding, at least, or kind of like a bit of a playing around with what placement of elements really works. And as you can see over here, this was my current setup, at least. It was kind of like known as the Grandmaster AI, because they can pretty much play chess that way, and pretty much more or less, as you can see, we have the board here, we have pretty much chat here, chat history, and pretty much the rules as well. One of the things that I always learn over time is that you pretty much can never be verbose enough for the rules that you put, at least for how they can interact with your AI, because even though sometimes you put the rule here as well, sometimes people just try all different kinds of things of playing chess without reading it. So it's a very interesting challenge, I think, in trying to get people to interact with the AI set up in a correct way. And that's something to keep in mind as well in kind of creating these kinds of things. And of course, making sure that the volume output quality is also good, and pretty much stream details appropriately as well, so people can follow through. And now we're going to be looking at the demo, and hopefully this is able to show up properly. Let's see. Michael, do you know if this has audio?
It should, over straight HDMI, it should work.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So this is my current OBS, and let's try starting screen. So pretty much for context, this is basically, I can just spin up a Twitch channel here, and pretty much we can just click watch now. So let's see if it works. Not sure if the Wi-Fi is. I can see, I'm not sure if the audio will be working. I think the Wi-Fi just
Your audio is muted in the window there.
Sorry?
Bottom left of your corner, your audio is muted. So on Twitch. On the left?
On the left?
So
oh,
left.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think the thread might be just probably a bit bad. That's very strange, yeah. And I think the other thread is not that going that good. All right. I'm not too sure. It seems like it's working, but very strange. All right, it seems to be sustaining now, so let's try, for instance, saying like, hello.
Hi there, I'm Ximena, the dancing and traveling enthusiast. Smile, what's your favorite place to visit? Hello.
All right, anyone has a message that they want to try and put through? Anyone?
Andorra. I want to visit Andorra.
All right, let's try. So we'll say, I'd like to visit Andorra.
Oh, Andorra sounds like a magical place. I hope you get to visit it soon. National Park. Do you enjoy skiing or snowboarding? Snowflake.
Yep, so as you can see, pretty much it responds based on, it remembers what you have said previously, as you can see, it has context. And pretty much it just keeps responding based on that. Continually, basically, as well, it always has a follow-up question as well, continue on basically the conversation. It's not always the best thing, that pretty much, at least for this particular context, it more or less tries to sustain a conversation that way. And as I was mentioning, one of the other features that pretty much I also made, like, at least him and I able to do as well, is basically also play chess. And as you can see over here, that enters into a bit of a game
Hey
mode,
there,
basically.
what difficulty level would you like to play on from 1 to 8? Let's have some fun with ChessCon.
So as you can see, they pretty much also just ask for a difficulty level. There are pretty much like interesting things pretty much they can do with this. Pretty much you can say, for instance, like 7, and after that they just basically will continue on prompting you again.
Awesome choice. We'll play on difficulty 7. What color would you like to play as ChessCon?
So then you can basically just say like white, for instance, and that pretty much will initialize the game for you to start off with.
Great. You'll play as white, so you can make the first move. Remember to type in your moves using source square and destination square like a 2 of 4 or use algebraic notation. If you ever want to give up, just type !reset chess pawn.
So after that, you can pretty much just start on playing. You can pretty much say, for instance, say, let's say like c4, and pretty much it'll basically think for a bit, and it will pretty much make a move again after that.
My move is e7 to e5, chess pawn.
So, interesting. I mean, I think it's pretty much like not refreshing, but yeah, essentially I'm just like more or less like showing a bit of a, just more or less just showing that, yeah, pretty much like how it thinks and pretty much how it responds to certain things. As you can see, pretty much it responds accordingly based on that. So yeah, pretty much as you can see, that's pretty much like how it interacts with people, and pretty much you can also, yeah, after that you can just like reset it as well.
Oopsie, the chess game has been reset. If you'd like to play again, just type in !play chess smile, and if you enjoyed our game, feel free to follow my Twitch channel for more fun updates. Glowing star.
There's always pretty much other interesting stuff that I always try pretty much like putting into it as well. So pretty much, for instance, basically the AI leveling more or less is scaled as well according to what you set. So for instance, like you're setting, like
What
if you
difficulty
put
would you
like
like to
for
play
instance like
on?
based
From
on
1 to 8, chess pawn.
1 to 8, pretty much it will just scale up basically based on what difficulty level that you set, and it'll just basically increase as well in terms of the overall the ranking pretty much of like how good the AI essentially can play. So as kind of like a bit of a side way, pretty much one of the interesting things that like I always thought about, like, okay, how can I always like make these kinds of games like more engaging? And pretty much one of the ways that I kind of like try to cater towards those returning as well is kind of like, okay, let's actually program like a secret difficulty level, which is like 0 basically. And in this case, actually level 0 pretty much is basically, if I'm not mistaken, like something of like an ELO of like 4,000 or something. So it's it's quite a bit. But yeah, as you can see, pretty much it's pretty much a bit of a functional thing. It's pretty much like working, and it pretty much just responds to people. And yeah, it's a bit of an interesting, just kind of like a side project, pretty much that I worked on. So yeah, pretty much that's just like a bit of the demo. And now let's see about getting this back again. So just like that. All right. So there are some feature developments pretty much that I can think of that at least I feel would be good on the horizon. So for instance, better voice, this is pretty much also, of course, like further pending technological developments, because there's a bit of a trade-off between how good can voice be and pretty much how expensive it is, because there's been other pretty much providers that have tried it as well, like 11 Labs. Not sure if anyone here is familiar with 11 Labs, but pretty much like a good, for those who are not familiar, it's basically a way to clone voices. So it's a really good way to pretty much just clone a particular voice and basically just use that voice as the voice. So yeah, it's a great way pretty much, and I experiment with that as well, pretty much on like some streams as well, like surprise some people by suddenly like giving Ximena like something like a male voice or something, which is like very interesting. But yeah, aside from that, doing like more fine tuning as well, maybe to be able to make better based on different scenarios, and of course potentially providing more audience structurability as well, and playing more games. So yeah, pretty much the key takeaways. I feel like this is pretty much like a cusp of an evolutionary change for streaming. Not that I of course wish for streaming to completely be based on AI, because there wouldn't be any personality anymore. I feel like if everything becomes AI, but certainly a different way of pretty much looking at things and doing things, I feel. And yeah, event-driven architecture is coupled with serverless supports as well. So yeah, final things that I really want to communicate pretty much if you pursue this kind of thing is like always consider your audience, who is this, like who you're trying to cater to, tailor personality towards the audience, and in general, have fun. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you, and yeah, I think we have like a bit of time for questions, if there's any. Yeah.
A simple question. Do you, let's say with your Twitch scenario using the AI models, like was there any, did you find any engagement, let's say from actual people responding to the AI?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very interesting because one of the most interesting use cases I feel that I actually saw from this is actually using her as a therapist, which is very interesting because and like a bit of fun fact, that was eventually actually like what caused me to create another side project, which is basically kind of like an AI-powered chat therapist, but that's a story for another day. But it was very interesting because we have these people like suddenly just like coming on stream, and like it was very interesting because I always try my best to just kind of like not intervene except like when especially necessary, and just like watch it unfold. And suddenly like just kind of like like watching this interaction, it's kind of like, oh, it started kind of like just just kind of like, oh, like hello and all that pretty much, and it started like basically the other person just kind of like started like talking about their day, and kind of like and like Ximena was able to actually be quite empathetic as well. It's like, oh, like I understand this, like it's not always been like good, and like can you tell me more kind of thing. So it's is actually very interesting. So no, 100%. I feel like there's always two types of reception that I always see. It's like people either kind of like are just like very into it, or people in general are just kind of like, oh, this is AI, I'm getting out of here. Like, I think it's always going to be very like those pretty much like two extremes, pretty much from what I see. So yeah, no, 100%, there definitely is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe Michael first.
Yep. So as a fellow streamer and watching people stream with AI, it's hilarious the way that it interacts with everything. I can see that this technology can be really useful with our aging population, for example, keeping companions. Also, we saw at the AWS office recently, they had a system that would give medicine to elderly people, so it would give them the right amount of medicine at a time. So having a digital AI nurse to help them would really make everyone's life better. To build on your point before, is that do you think that, because at the moment AI is sort of a little bit in the uncanny valley where we can detect it's AI but it's not really human, what are your thoughts philosophically on losing the human element if we go down the path of using AI in this sort of way in the mainstream?
I feel like that's a very interesting point, Michael, and I feel like there's certainly been already like a number of attempts to somehow, to an extent, like commercialize it a bit more. Like, I don't keep that up to date like too much often with, like, for instance, like some parts of the content streaming, I would say like landscape, but I did hear that there was, for instance, like one attempt pretty much that a YouTuber tried to do in trying to sell like basically kind of like a set of tools, basically kind of like replace essentially all your videos in YouTube basically with an AI counterpart. So basically kind of like, oh, like, you know, like trains on your your data basically. It trains like on like, you know, like every kind of like interaction you've had, and trains on important information about yourself, and basically just like creates like these whole AI generated videos that's kind of like completely trying to replicate how your voiceover is, tries to use your voice, tries to use, and I feel like to an extent, for now at least, what I've seen is that it still hasn't been doing that well, and I don't think our technology is to that extent yet, just because, well, you know, people, because in the end of the day, people usually come on to platforms like Twitch and YouTube, pretty much usually to kind of like seek somewhat of a human connection, pretty much. And so I feel like to an extent, at least for now, I don't think that it would be something that would directly, you know, like replace humans or anything like that. I feel like towards the future, we might somehow like see, have those lines a bit blurred more as technology improves, but I do feel that it's certainly still important to have the human element as much as possible, pretty much. Any more questions?
I don't think I need the microphone. Yeah, awesome, cool. Enjoyed the presentation, and getting a practical experiment that you can put up and show and have it working is impressive. I had two questions. First question is, for someone who's trying to replicate what you're doing, do a similar experiment, you're using OBS, and in terms of an infrastructure standpoint, what was the trickiest thing in actually making it work? Like, you obviously got the idea of how you would glue it all together, but was there one thing that you give advice to a newcomer who's trying to redo your experiment from scratch?
Yeah, I feel like definitely try to, I feel like two things, like definitely try to find the niche that you're going into. Like, I think that's the first one, and you know, I feel like that's from a non-technical standpoint, because I feel like trying to find a niche and trying an audience, like it took me a while as well to try to find like my own niche as well. Like it was a while before pretty much I eventually tried to make this channel into kind of like more of an AI stream, chess playing, like, and that's what pretty much like people, at least like on the channel, also refer to it as well. It's like, oh yeah, it's the AI, it's a chess playing AI streamer pretty much. And I think, you know, which is interesting, because like eventually fell into that niche, and I think that's like one of the most important things pretty much to capture, because it's pretty much always hard to at least make yourself stand out, because, you know, like I'm pretty sure at this point, since it's been like a year old, I'm not the only one anymore who's like trying this kind of thing out as well. So like finding a niche is very important. So yeah, it's always important to enter knowing what you want to find. And the second thing is just, I feel like the other hard thing is pretty much just finding the right balance of features, and pretty much I feel like the overall code that you're trying to make, because I feel like the longest process pretty much for me is basically trying to code up everything, work with everything basically, and try to make it real slick as possible. So pretty much I feel like if you actually took the time to pretty much plan out the features and pretty much make sure that, yeah, you can make the code as kind of like simple and pretty much streamlined, then that's pretty much another thing that I feel like would be good pretty much for the scenario. Yeah.
And the second question, what, as far as integration of the system, what was the trickiest thing to integrate, to get working? The thing that took you the longest, that you, in terms of sticking it all together and have it work as a working demo each time, what was the trickiest bit? You've got OBS, you've got your model, you've got your code. When you're actually getting it to work and flicking over from it not working to it working, what was the toughest problem that you had?
Dependencies. I would say that that's definitely the biggest thing. This thing relies on a lot of dependencies, including things from like Amazon Bedrock and pretty much as well like relevant SSML libraries as well. And it's crazy because like for instance, like for the chess setup as well, like it runs on Chrome driver basically. And one of the hardest things pretty much I had to do always is pretty much every time I feel like I try to spin it up again, like after 2 weeks, Chrome updates, then pretty much basically then they say, oh, your version of Chrome driver is no longer compatible, and pretty much you have to just go on again and download that again. And similar with other dependencies as well, like especially with Gen AI always changing quickly, like the landscape, you always have new libraries, you always have to keep things updated, and keeping things updated, you have to break things as well, and I feel like that's pretty much the main thing. So I feel like definitely the hardest thing was just trying to make sure that all these things were working together, these dependencies, making sure that the generative AI workflow and pretty much the libraries pretty much are working together. I feel that's the main thing. I'll probably close it here just because I know that we are, I feel like a bit running and out of time. But if anyone has any more questions, yeah, I mean, I'll be around. So yeah, please just come up and yeah, I'll hand back to you now. Thanks all.
So thanks for the talk from Renaldi and the very interesting demonstration. So now we will take a short break. So feel free to grab some food and pizza and make more connection. We will back here at 7 o'clock. So around 5 minutes later. Thank you.
Being an organizer since he's moving to Sydney. Yeah, Kai's pretty much been around ever since I feel pretty much Thais as well. I stepped down as well from being the last co-organizer, and pretty much he's always been around helping in every event, helping ensure, you know, like put out fires, ensure that I think everyone is, you know, like always happy as well. And yeah, you know, I'm very appreciative of Kai. Pretty much always been helping out with the whole organizing, and yeah, pretty much just would like to invite everyone to just like give a round of applause as well. And yeah, pretty much that's just a bit of a quick little update. And yeah, pretty much we have a great team of organizers as well that's pretty much still going to continue on, including myself as well. But just a quick, pretty much another call out as well to if anyone is interested in kind of like being involved in the overall organizing, emceeing, please do reach out, and yeah, we'll be more than happy pretty much to have a chat with you and yeah, see where you can fit in as well within your organizing. Thanks all.
Hello everyone, I'd like to formally apologise that in the span of us taking a small break, the projector has died. So we're going to try and make do with our portable little monitor, so it's one of those life lessons. Always plan for failure and always have redundancy, so thank you.
So just maybe bear with us with this small monitor for the next presentation. So now we are going to have Akshat to present us web development using Django. Please welcome Akshat.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So before we start, just a quick announcement. If anybody is interested to move to the front side chairs, because text will not be properly visible to the people on the backside. So just a heads up. All right, so yeah, we're good to start. So today we'll be looking at Dockerizing our Django. So Django is like, as I presented in the August meetup about introduction to Django and how we can build a web application using the framework. So today we'll be talking about the deployment part, and we'll be using Docker for our deployment purpose. So we'll see how that works, and we'll take a quick refresher for Django as well. So before we start, I'd like to introduce myself. I am currently studying Masters of Cybersecurity at Deakin, and I also have worked as a software engineer back in India for almost 2 years. And here I was working as a career ambassador at Deakin Talent, which is an employability service by the Deakin University. And I'm aspiring to be a security professional. Now, before we start, let's take a quick look at what is Django and how it works. So Django is a Python-based high-level web development framework. It follows MPT architecture. If you are not aware of MPT, we'll discuss in the next slide. Then it provides supports for ORM. Then ORM is basically to help you with your database needs in the web application, and it comes with attached batteries. So for example, there are different functionalities that you can utilize for security or maybe course headers. If like some of you are aware of web development stuff, we need course headers. And for building REST APIs, there's also another battery that we can attach. So let's go through the architecture. I hope it's visible till the end. So yeah, see, the architecture is, this is basically the application server that we have, and it has the MVD architecture that we follow. So MVT, this is for model. Models is basically defining your database structure. So what are the tables that you have in particular table, you can define the columns and their constraints. Then we have views, which covers your business logic. So all the API, all the calculation and computation behind presenting the data before the user. So it will be taken care by view. Then we have templates. So this is the front end part that the user will be able to see. And this is URLs, which handles your HTTP requests and tell the request where to go. So we define URLs as a route to go to particular view, and it will be displayed in the end to the template. And now to deploy all of this application, we'll use Docker. So this is where Docker stands in overall picture. Now the folder structure for defining this will be, this is your usual Django stuff. So we have the application folder, we have project folder, then this is environment. So this will be the file that is responsible for your deployment, which is called Docker file. And yeah, so now let's talk about Docker. So Docker leverages containerization to deploy applications without worrying about managing your dependencies. What does that mean? So when you're working with any web application, you have certain dependencies. For example, Django itself is a dependency that you have to take care when you're developing the app. So there are different versions that are released. Now you have to see the availability of all the dependencies and manage it on your own. But if you use Docker, you can avoid that and define that in your Docker file. So it will take care of it. Let's take a look how that looks. So here, one of our dependencies is the Python environment. So we are defining the Python version as 3.11. Then we'll create a work directory that Docker will use to fetch the source code from. Then from current directory, where you are running the container from, it will copy the code inside the container. Then it will update your environment and install the dependencies for Python from this file. And this is your port where the application will be running. And this is the final command used for running the application. Now let's jump to the demonstration. So now when you run a Docker container, first it will build the image, and that takes quite a bit of a time. So I have already built the images. This code will be available on GitHub in like 1 or 2 days. I'll update it, so you can take a look for yourself, and I'll continue with demonstration here. So this is the list of all the images that we have, and this is the image that we'll be working with in the first demonstration. So the name is Docker demo, and we'll try to run container to see what's there in the application. Yeah, so this is a simple thank you page that I hosted using the application, and currently it is running inside the container. And to verify that it is running from a container, we'll try to see what all containers are present inside the Docker engine. So this is our container, which is running on port 8080, and it is using the Docker demo image that I showed in the previous part. So this is one simple demonstration how you can host your Django application. Now, when you're working with web applications, there is not always a demand for a static application, and you need a database to support your dynamic rendering and data on the web page. So let's see a demonstration where we'll be using database as well. Yeah. So now when you're working with multiple containers, so we need a network and orchestrator tool to manage both of your containers. And Docker provides with Docker Compose, which is a module that takes care of your orchestration. So this is a file that is defined, which is called Docker Compose.yaml. So here we are creating a Django network first. So this will be the network, Django demo, then there are services that we are defining. So first is the MySQL database container, which will run on port 3302. Then it will be attached to the network, and for second container, we have our Django application. So I've defined the Docker file here. Then there will be a few commands that will run to make sure the database is running first before launching the application. And again, it will be connected to the network, and it depends on our database service. And here we are defining the volume just in case if we need some storage for the application. Now to running this. So this is the command that starts the container. So we can see it created the network first, then there are these two containers. This is the database container, and this is the Django project container. So now let's verify that if the Django application is deployed and we have all the configuration required to run the application smoothly. So we'll verify that by checking the containers first. So these are the containers that are running, and these are the two containers that we are working with. The third one is the one that we used in the demo one. So let's go in the MySQL container and see if we have our desired output waiting for us there. So this is the command that allows us to interact with the container itself. So as you might know, we interact with Linux-based systems using commands. So the environment that we are using is also Linux-based here. So this Python. Yeah, so the Python image, the base image for this Python environment is Linux. So we'll be interacting it using the bash shell, and here we can go to the MySQL service and see what all tables are available. So these are all the tables that are required for running a Django application, because it provides you, as I was mentioning, it takes care of a certain functionalities. So it provides different tables to manage the users and their permissions, and certain things to manage the content management system that Django provides by itself, including the admin panel. So this is about how you deploy your Django applications using Docker. And if you have any questions, we can take the questions now. And this is a QR code to my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect.
It's not a question, it's just that, can I see the demonstration of how do you access the application?
In the second one.
Yeah, so you had the Django, that application, right, the Django application, Python, connected to your DB. So how do a user interacts with it?
So when a user interacts, this is a basic demonstration. So I have only used the basic installation of Django and just showed the interaction using the Django shell. Sorry, not the Django shell. The MySQL service itself. So if you have models defined in a certain table, so you can directly open Django shell and interact with it using the commands. I'm not really sure if I have one demonstration readily available to show here at the moment. But yeah, this is basically how you interact with your database using Django. And on my GitHub, there are, I think, 1 or 2 examples available that you can use.
I'm not confirmed that it's a Django application. I know it says everything is Django, but
Oh, okay, like that.
that's how, until unless I don't interact with it, how would I know?
So,
The application, yeah.
right, the interface will be a normal web application, and Django is taking care of your backend. So, there is not really a confirmation that it is running Django, but user will not be concerned with that. So, on the front end, it will only show the HTML that you have. And once again, I think we can confirm it with the basic installation page that we get. So that's how you know it is a Django application, when you're starting the development. So, hope that answers your question. Anyone else? Yep.
Yeah. While you were developing this, what problems did you encounter and how did you overcome them?
So in terms of solving it with Docker or in general?
Just any problems. Did you encounter any as you were developing, and did you have to work through any problems?
First is that there are a few images that are not stable in Docker, so you have to deal with the technical issues, like when you're updating it will go in some error, or if you're trying to install certain dependency on the base environment, it will face issues there. So those were certain issues. Then I looked up on Google, which is a supported Docker image that I can use for my particular requirement. So based on that, I solved the issue. Anyone else?
Can you use Django on a distributed server? So if you're running on multiple nodes or something like that?
Definitely, you can break it down to microservice architecture and deploy different services on different servers. So yeah, definitely you can. Anyone else?
You've deployed in Docker. Do you see that as an overhead over a native Linux environment? Is there an advantage to running in Docker or running natively?
Right. So the basic advantage that you get is you define all your requirements at once in the Docker file that I showed. So this file. So all the requirements are just listed down at once, and even if the version changes, it will not create a problem for you. It is all managed because you have the base image for Python available there, and for your Python dependencies like Django, DRF, and all these. So you have defined it all at once. So yeah, I think the biggest issue that it resolves is with versions, because sometimes developers say that it works on my machine, but not in the production server.
what I was really getting at was from an overhead perspective, resource perspective, do you see that running in a Docker environment is more efficient or is less efficient than running in a native Linux, for example?
It will be more efficient and scalable. Because all the Kubernetes takes Docker image, and all the like scalable solutions that are available, they basically use a Docker image to deploy your applications. It is easy to create the replicas in that.
I'm just asking, is that easy to find a job for doing Django? I self-learned Django for a little bit, but I jumped to the website to try to find the web development for Django, but I didn't find too much.
That's a very good question actually, but being a student, I don't think I'm in a position to answer that like in terms of employability, because I do not work in Django anymore. I have switched to cybersecurity, but this is like from my previous work experience I'm presenting here, so yeah, I don't think I'm in a position to answer that, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you, like, Django is used for backend.
Yes.
So can you also use Python for front end? Because like optimally, we want to use Python for everything, this MicroPython. Like how do you use Python for front end, or is that even possible?
For front end, so as I was explaining in the MVT architecture, there's a template section. Here, so as you can see, like this supports HTML to render the templates as well. So yeah, definitely you can use it for that. There is a Django template language that you can use to render the front end. So yeah, it provides customization. You can include like customization with Python language as well. So you can use for loops and all that in that. If you explore a bit in the documentation, there's a very interesting section on that. All right, anyone else?
With your cybersecurity hat on, if you're securing Django, is there anything that you'd recommend?
Securing Django, unfortunately I have not like explored that much on that, but as far as I know, there are various libraries available, and by default it provides a lot of security measures that you can utilize. For example, when you are using a form, so it provides you CSRF headers that you can use to protect your application from CSRF attacks. All right, I think we don't have any more questions, so yeah. Thank you guys.
Thanks for Shaq for his presentation. So now we will, so lastly, as we are coming to the end of 2024, we would like to do a little bit wrap up of the things that we have done through the year. And we would like to pass the time to Renaldi to give us a summary. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. So yeah, as mentioned, pretty much it's I think it's pretty much of an updates. I think that I'll be a bit of a doing as opposed to I think like a bit of a wrap up. But yeah, pretty much I feel like we've been running, you know, like pretty much for just over a year now, pretty much since our inception last year. So yeah, you know, like this pretty much couldn't happen without all of you, pretty much. You know, like I see very familiar faces coming in. Like I think every time like at a meetup, like it's like 25 to 50%. It's always pretty much like familiar faces. So yeah, you know, thank you so much again for always like coming through. And you know, you're after all, when you pretty much what powers our community. Like you know, if you're not around, then we pretty much couldn't have had these without you. And it's always pretty much like always really great having all these pretty much like facilitating for the discussions. And of course, again, couldn't have happened without our sponsors, Bank, GDP, AWS. So really grateful for our sponsors as well. And just a few updates pretty much as we close up for the year. We will pretty much not be having a January meetup. We will be, the next one when we'll be having will be in February. So pretty much, yeah, like we already anticipate that many of you pretty much will probably be on holiday mode, you know, from this meetup onwards pretty much, and probably maybe even in January as well. So we'll pretty much just get kicked off again in February, and we, of course, in the organizing team will have a lot of great things like prepared as well for the new year, and we're always exploring new ways of pretty much doing things as well, new activities and new ways of engaging pretty much, and we'll be sharing that as well like very soon. mentoring as well, for instance, as well, one of them. So again, final call out, like if you're interested, pretty much just join the Slack, reach out, fill in the form, sign up to be a mentor, because that's pretty much, like it's all about consistent giving and getting as well back as well. So yeah, it's all about that journey. And also a final call out as well for anyone who is interested as well in getting involved. Please do reach out if you're interested in organizing, being sponsored liaison, getting involved as well within as a mentor liaison. If you're interested in any of these roles, please do reach out. We're always pretty much interested in growing our team, and yeah, pretty much our organizing core team as well. So if you're interested, please do reach out to me and or any of the team as well, and yeah, we'll be more than happy to pretty much chat with you more on that. But yeah, pretty much I think that's pretty much a wrap up of the our event. Yeah, is there any other thing? That's yep. Pretty much yeah, that's all for our event for today. Again, a big round of pretty much like thank you for everyone again for attending our event. And yeah, pretty much we'll be heading off, I think, like in a bit. But pretty much organizing team will be around just to in case anyone has any more questions about what it looks like towards the end of the year, or if you want to get involved. So yeah, please do do spend next like 10-20 minutes like chatting, and yeah, after that we'll be pretty much yeah just like slowly making our way out of here. Once again, thanks all, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the next year.